Welcome, Gunrunner.
Hey everybody, Kieran aka RetroLed here, and I'm back with another book review for you. And those of you who read Retro Gamer and follow them on social media might have seen that just recently they were doing a big sale on the Bookazines, and I thought I would take a look. I usually pretty much buy them when they come out if they interest me anyway. But I knew there was a few that I'd ummed and ahed about and decided against buying at the time, so I thought I'd have a quick look, and was pleasantly surprised to see a few of the ones I didn't have in the sale and quite significantly reduced. And one such book, as you can see already, was the Amiga Book. And I was an ST owner growing up, still am an ST owner, still I have no Amiga at all. But obviously I have a firm interest in retro gaming, and I also have quite a big interest in the guys behind the Amiga, because of course they designed the 2600 in the Atari 8-bit before they did the Amiga, and then went on to do the Lynx, which is my favourite machine of all time. So the Amiga is kind of a link in between, you know, some of my other favourite machines. So it does interest me. It's just I can never own one, being an ST man. Well, I to be honest, have steered away from collecting the computers anyway. I've more been a console collector, so that would be probably one of the bigger reasons that I've never bought one. And then the CD32, I have ummed and ahed many times over one of them, because it is a console, of course, and CDs and has most of the Amiga's best games. I have ummed and ahed over one of them quite a few times, but there we go. So one thing that I thought was funny when they did the Amiga Book, was that most of the others they've done like this have been dual Bookazines. Like they did a Spectrum Commodore 64, they did a Mega Drive SNES, they did a Master System NES book. So they've kind of done the combination books for the two rivals. So I did find it was quite strange that they chose to do an Amiga book and not an Amiga ST book. But I do know, because being involved in retro gaming myself as a freelancer, that there was a concern that they didn't have enough ST content, because a lot of the games are the same, obviously. And when they did generally cover a lot of those games, they generally looked at the Amiga version rather than the ST version. And then kind of mentioned this is also on the ST. So it would have been quite hard to maybe find individual content for the ST, aside from a few things like OIDs and Dungeon Master and things like that are really ST games. And also, you know, there's some of the articles they did have might not necessarily been geared directly at the ST. What Retro Gamer did do is they did follow this up with a digital magazine on the ST. So it's a shame they haven't done a print version of that, but they did do a digital ST mag. I certainly think there'd be more than enough demand to do a print version of the ST mag. Look at things like, you know, there's been the recent ST Kickstarter that's been successful and stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of interest in the ST out there. But this is the Amiga Book, so let's have a look at this and see what it's all about and see what's in it. This is the revised edition, I believe. They quite often do this. They do one edition and then they do a revised edition later on. And I have to say, I do not know what the differences are between this version and the revised edition. Sorry, the original one, the revised edition that I've got here, because I don't have the other one. Sometimes there's no differences at all. Sometimes they change around a couple of the articles if they think there's stuff that's better suited to the magazine or whatever. So here we go. Let's have a look. So it starts off with the content there, so you can already see plenty of big well-known titles, stuff like Worms and Another World, Lotus, Saul. There's Rainbow Islands down there. So there's already plenty of that stuff. So you already know that there's going to be plenty of good stuff in there. Obviously, it starts off with hardware articles. Since obvious start, so looking at the Amiga 500, how that came about, quite a lot of that really interesting stuff about the how the Amiga 500 came about in the Bedrooms to Billions, the Amiga Years documentary that I've also reviewed recently, so have a watch of that. But obviously it was a response to the ST, because the original Amiga looked more like a PC with a separate keyboard and base unit and stuff. So then it's got perfect 10 games. Worms at number 1. Worms is actually one of my favourite games of all time. So I don't think I can argue with a single game in the list. It's good to see Jimmy White at number 2, because I loved Jimmy White on the ST. I have to say I played the hell out of it. I mean, there's all good games on that list there. I liked these when they used to do these. This is one of my favourite things that used to do in Retro Gamer. It's a shame they don't do them anymore. But I suppose they did them for all the machines out there pretty much, so there was nothing left to do really. Amiga 1200. So it goes into that, the 32-bit version of the Amiga. And then the perfect 10 games for that. Worms again, number 1. So that's quite funny that they've got Worms as the best game on both of them. I haven't even heard of quite a few of those games, I have to say. But I'm not that familiar with the Amiga 12,000 library. Although my biggest memory of the Amiga 12,000 was when I worked at Game. We always had an Amiga 12,000 on display that you could play games on. But I always seem to remember, I think pretty much the whole time I worked there, because we had to have certain games running on it, because we were usually told what we had to run on it. I could just remember we pretty much always seemed to have Cannon Fodder 2 running on it, constantly. So I don't ever remember having anything else playing on it. So they're into the Amiga CD32, which is obviously the console version really of the Amiga 12,000 with a few enhancements. I said earlier I wouldn't have minded one of these. But there's a couple of things that have put me off always with the CD32 is the controller is absolutely awful. And to find the better ones, like there was a Competition Pro for it, they're even harder to find. They're really expensive. They go for silly money. So it kind of puts me off. That's one thing that's really put me off CD32. And the other thing is it's a really ugly looking console with really cheap build quality. So that's kind of put me off as well. I have actually seen one that's white. I think it was a prototype version or something. More like the colour of the Amiga, and it looks a lot nicer than the grey. But it is not a good looking console at all. There's plenty there about that. Perfect 10 games. Oh, Worms not number 1. Worms is actually number 2 for the CD32. Shock horror. So they've got that at number 2, and Diggers is number 1. And then we've got Makings of Lemmings 1 and 2. Great games on every format they've appeared on. You know, not just the Amiga. I think that it did originate on the Amiga, the Lemmings series. I think it became much more than that. And some classic moments, either Beholder, Syndicate, Sensible World of Soccer. I love Sensible Soccer. It's still my favourite football game. And I remember my friend had an Amiga, and he bought this, and I loved it. And I remember being so gutted that they chose not to do an ST version. Really gutted. I never understood why either, because it wasn't like it's something that could have been done on the ST. But I guess they felt that the ST market wasn't strong enough by that point when it came out, that it wasn't worth doing. But it's a shame. The art of the Amiga. It was one of the things that Amiga was most known for, was definitely the art, because it had terrific capabilities in terms of how many colours it could display with the different graphics modes and stuff. So it's definitely something that's interesting to see. Number 1s. Speedball 2. Fun fact, though they've obviously featured it here as an Amiga game, it was an ST game at first. Bitmap Brothers did all their games on the ST, then converted them to the Amiga. So the Amiga did have some extra voice samples and stuff, but it is essentially the same game. I loved it on the ST, so one of my favourite games probably ever. Brilliant game. Shadow of the Beast. Look at those games. Almost synonymous with the Amiga. The original Shadow of the Beast was the game that sold a lot of people on the Amiga and made them go and buy one, even though it wasn't really a particularly great game. It was more of just a graphics demo. But excuse me. This does look at some of the other versions of Shadow of the Beast as well. And it's always worth mentioning the Lynx version down here, and they rave about it in here, and rightly so, because it's the only other version they also mentioned here that was done by Reflections. So it's the only other version that the original programmers worked on, and what they actually did was, I've read interviews with them about it, and they did say that Martin Edmondson, is it, who did Shadow of the Beast? I'm sure that's the guy's name. I'll have to look now. Martin, yeah, it is Martin Edmondson. I knew it was. I don't know what's questioning myself. Martin Edmondson was saying that originally it was handed out to somebody else to work on, but he was really interested in the Lynx, and it intrigued him a lot, I suppose, because it's the same design team as the Amiga and stuff. So he actually got involved in it and kind of co-programmed it, and they made a lot of changes to actually add more gameplay into it, but it's still beautiful. I mean, absolutely stunning. Although whoever did this article raves about it and then criticises at the end, saying that it should have had a save feature, and it's not an ideal portable game. So whoever wrote that, I don't agree with that at all, because I've completed Shadow of the Beast on the Lynx, so I don't think it's unmercifully challenging, as they've said here. So it's one of the few Lynx games that I've completed, and I'm not the most amazing game player, so I don't quite agree with that part there at all. But yeah, the Lynx version is excellent anyway. Putty Squad, which kind of got resurrected fairly recently when they found the unreleased versions of it. Supremacy, and actually released it as well, didn't they? It's a Cinemaware article. Obviously Cinemaware again are kind of synonymous with the Amiga. They did some really impressive stuff. They released stuff for other formats as well, but I think they're best known for their Amiga stuff. Again, the original Defender of the Crown was one of those games that kind of sold people on the Amiga because it just looked so amazing. But I should mention that the ST version of Defender of the Crown is actually better because it was released later and has more features, and they tightened up the gameplay and stuff a bit, so actually the ST version is actually better. Secret of Monkey Island. Never was a fan of these point and click games, so I can't really say a lot about Monkey Island, I have to say. Zool, Amiga's answer to Sonic. I had that on the ST and really liked it. Sensible Software, of course, amazing. Everything they did was just excellent. Loved Sensible Software and their work. I've met John Hare as well a few times, and a really good guy. I had some great chats with him about the stuff that he did. There he is, on there. He's always up for talking about his games. He's a very approachable guy. The Amiga series. What am I talking about? Lotus series, sorry. Great games again. I had all the Lotus games on the Atari ST, and I bought one of the things, Lotus 2, I had on the Mega Drive as well, because I liked it so much. I bought it again for the Mega Drive, which I don't often do with games, is buy them. In the past, there wasn't many games that I can think of that I owned on one system and bought again for another. There's a few things like ST games that I love, Spectrum games that I loved, where I bought the ST version as well. later on to get it in the 16-bit quality. But I can't think of many games where I owned it on the ST and then owned it on the Mega Drive as well. But Lotus was one of those. Another one that springs to mind, actually, funny enough, I've always loved driving games. Another one was Super Hang-On. I had that on the ST and then I bought it on the Mega Drive as well. But the Mega Drive version had loads of enhancements, so it was well worth it. Like the career mode and stuff. Team 17. Don't have to really say anything about Team 17. They were kind of an Amiga only publisher at first. Did all this, all the stuff off the back of Worms. Really, that was originally did PD software, but and were well regarded as a public domain distributor. But it was Worms that kind of exploded them into the spotlight, and then we got lots of stuff from there. I mean, Alien Breed and Project X and all sorts of things. But obviously, they still go to this day. I mean, especially with the Worms stuff, which they're still churning out a Worms game probably every year or so. I don't think Worms is ever going to go away. To be honest, it's become one of those franchises. It's just a guaranteed cash cow, really, isn't it? Into Pinball Dreams. Well enough, I don't remember this article on Pinball Dreams, and I actually did myself an article fairly recently on 21st Century Entertainment, who obviously made it, and so it's quite interesting to read this article on Pinball Dreams as well. I did notice though it's got I owned Pinball Fantasies. It's the only one of them I ever owned. Actually, I bought the Jaguar version when it came out, and they've got it here. And actually know one of the guys who worked on the Jaguar version, Stuart Gilray, is a friend of mine. It says here the Jaguar Soccer version of Pinball Fantasies, which failed to capture the magic of the Amiga version, which I just think is nonsense, because it's almost exactly the same. They literally ported the Amiga version, and from having spoken to the guys behind it, I know that was the case. They literally just ported over the Amiga version. It didn't take them very long to do, so it was an easy release for the Jaguar, really. So quite strange. I mean, it's identical to the Amiga AGA version, so strange comment I thought there. But they're all good games. I love pinball games anyway. So Amiga 500 top 25. So plenty of stuff you'd expect to see in here. Stunt Car Racer, Rainbow Islands there, Lotus, Populous. Good to see Data Storm in there. It's a really underrated shooter, that. Supercars, Chaos Engine, Turrican 2, Sensible Soccer. Good to see Sensible Soccer above Kickoff 2. And funnily enough, I did the Atari ST Top 25, which has quite a few of the same games in it. And it was similar in that. I think they were higher placed, but Sensible Soccer finished a few places above Kickoff 2, so it's good to see. That was consistent, actually. Lemmings Frontier, Cannon Fodder, and Speedball 2 was number 1. And funny enough, when we did the ST one, Speedball 2 was number 2, and Dungeon Master was number 1. So a few of the top entries are actually the same. I think Lemmings was very high on the ST one as well, so interesting. Jet Strike, know nothing about that game. Never played it, never even seen it. Quite an obscure game, so looks quite nifty, but just say I know nothing about it. Amiga Underground, talking about public domain scene. It's quite good. Alarmatron, of course. ST game first. Yeah, Jeff Minter at his best. Sorry, I'm trying not to mention the ST too much, but it's hard. The ST and Amiga, you can't ignore one without the other. They're kind of related to each other so closely, and being an ST owner, it's very hard not to relate to my ST memories, because I don't have those memories of the Amiga. I only really had the one friend who had an Amiga, and all my other friends were ST owners, so That's one reason why I got the ST, was because all my friends had an ST. There was no allegiance. I didn't really have any real allegiance to Atari at that point. So, apart from maybe the fact that I was a Spectrum owner, so kind of Spectrum owners quite often got the ST because they didn't like Commodore. But I don't remember thinking that at the time. I just remember thinking all my friends have got an ST. I want an ST. The Chaos Engine. Never a game that I've got into. It's always one of those ones that I think I should go back and play again, because I've played it, but I just didn't really get into it. But I love all the bitmaps, other stuff. So I'm sure if I played it again and gave it a bit of time, I'd love it. Stuff about Scum Engine, of course, Ron Gilbert, and what happened with that. Classic point and click adventure styley. Simon the Sorcerer. Again, a game I've never really played, but I know it's quite highly regarded. Making of Worms, it had to be in there somewhere, didn't it? Took its time coming. You know, it's one of those games that, well, especially with seeing the previous number one, number two, I think it was, wasn't it, on the CD32? So it had to be in there somewhere, didn't it? A Making of Worms, especially since the series is still going and still hugely popular. Alien Breed. And the Collector's Guide to the Amiga 500. So slightly different to a lot of the other collector's guides that Retro Gamer have done, because they did loads for the consoles. The computer ones are slightly different because there's no way you can list every game, because there's just so many. So they kind of go for them. We've obviously got the rarest games and the games that are worth playing here. So obviously Giant Sisters there, because it got banned thanks to Nintendo. So obviously that's there. And then they've got, rather than all the games, so you can tick off all the games, they've got the games you need to own. So they've tried to go for like the best and most well-known games. There's obviously some games in here that aren't particularly great, but they're extremely well-known, so that's why they're in there. And that's basically it. That's the end. And that's the Amiga book. So if you were an Amiga fan back in the day, or if you still are an Amiga fan, then this is an excellent book. I mean, even as a non Amiga fan like myself, I still enjoyed the books. It's got a lot of franchises that I know well, and I think that's one of the big things about this book is there's a lot of these big franchises started off on the Amiga. Stuff like Worms and Lotus and Shadow the Beast and things like that. So if you loved those franchises, then you'd really enjoy reading the origins of those games and how they started off. And I enjoyed a lot of that. And obviously as an ST owner, there's a lot of stuff that's transferable because the same people did the same versions and stuff, especially with the Bitmap Brothers, etc. So I enjoyed it as well. So yeah, it's definitely worth picking up. And I will stick a link below so you can buy it directly from the Imagine shop. I wouldn't have thought you'd find it around in the newsagents anymore, because it did come out a little while ago. So I am kind of behind the curve a little bit of the review, but there's always people who miss out on these things. I mean, when I posted the link around that Imagine were doing the sale, and a lot of my friends picked up Bookazines that they either didn't realise were about or had missed out on. So I definitely think there's still some people out there looking to pick up things like this. So yeah, well worth picking up if you haven't already. And so thank you for watching. Make sure you give us a like, give us a comment, tell us what your favourite Amiga games were and your favourite memories of the machine. And I'll be back with another video for you all soon. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.